Hey everyone, and welcome to Campus Pulse, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater College of Business and Economics. I'm Jessica Berge, and this is where we shine a light on the people and ideas that make CoBE tick. In every episode, we're sitting down with the faculty, staff, and innovators who are doing the real work, the research projects you've never heard about, the new programs being built, the teaching experiments happening right now. Whether you're a student, part of our CoBE family, or just curious about what really goes on inside of a business college, this show is for you. So let's dive in. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Campus Pulse. I'm Jessica Berge. When most people think business school, they don't necessarily think nonprofit sector, but maybe they should. Nonprofits employ millions of people, generate billions in economic activity, and are the backbone of a vibrant community. And UW-Whitewater is training the next generation of nonprofit leaders. Today I'm talking with Dr. Ruth Hansen, an associate professor of management and the director of our Institute for Nonprofit Management Studies. Ruth has over 20 years of professional fundraising experience, a Ph.D. focused on fundraising ethics and equity, and she's building something really unique here at CoBE, a program that treats nonprofit management as seriously as any other business discipline. We're going to talk about what that institute actually does, why nonprofits belong in business school, and what Ruth's learning from her research on how gender and values influence charitable giving. So let's dive in. Ruth, thank you so much for joining me today.
Jessica, thank you so much for the invitation. I love talking about this and I love that you're giving me the opportunity to.
Well, we're so excited to learn more about the Nonprofit Institute. So let's just start with the basics. Can you tell me what is the Institute for Nonprofit Management Studies and what does it actually do?
Sure. So the Institute was founded to really capitalize on the fact that people who study nonprofits, people who are interested in nonprofits, people who are preparing students to work in nonprofits are not all in one department, right? So the Institute focuses in three main areas. One is our student focused, our academic programs. And there we are really trying to prepare students, whether they want to work in a nonprofit or be on the board of a nonprofit or contribute in some other way by volunteering or by making gifts, giving them kind of the literacy to understand some of the dynamics that are specific to the nonprofit sector. We also, it's very important to us to be grounded in actual practice. We want to do research that helps people who are helping to fund the sector, that helps people who are managing these programs, some which, you know, can be delivering really some very it's not even out of line to say life-saving programs, really. We want them to have those management competencies and those administrative competencies that really let their programs shine and be of value to the people who are relying on them. And then the third piece is to be a resource for the community. And that's something where I think we really have more to develop, but we have done some limited pro bono consulting for some groups in the community, whether it's training for people who are currently employed in the sector or just giving like some pro bono consulting support.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. That's a lot of information. So some of this might be repeat, but you became the director in 2022. What's your vision for the Institute? You just told us what it was about. What's the vision? What are you hoping to build here?
Yeah. So to me, it is very important to acknowledge um, that while the impetus to help, to give money, to volunteer for, um, might to some people be seen as not as serious as their day job.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the people who manage those volunteers, the people who monitor the income streams and the finances for an organization, the people who provide that infrastructure for these programs to be offered can benefit from the same types of training and education and research that we are sharing with our students in for-profit programs. So it's really to take the work of nonprofits seriously
Mm-hmm.
and give people the basis to be as competent, in this field as well.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Why does a nonprofit management program belong in a business school? I imagine some people might find that surprising.
Yeah, well, it's funny because when you look across the country at nonprofit programs, they are not just in one area. It's not really a discipline unto itself
Mm-hmm.
yet. It's something that really just started having research done in the early 1970s, which is relatively recent for an academic field. And the people who research it come from economics, they come from sociology, they come from social psychology, they come from business, they come from marketing, they come from management. And I myself come from 20 years as a fundraiser. So the financial aspect is there, but also very much the ideas of motivation, the ideas of leadership. So for me, the part that I focus on very much belongs in a management program.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it's something that can work well in a business school. In some places, it's in public admin. Um, but I think we work very well here.
Well, I know we're happy to have you here.
Well, thank you.
So tell me about the students in your program. Who are they? What draws them to nonprofit management?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I would say there's no single answer there.
Mm-hmm.
We do have some students who are CoBE students who are taking the minor or who are majoring in management with an emphasis in nonprofit management. We have a number of students who are majoring in something outside of business, but want to minor in nonprofit management. They could be history majors who want to work in a museum. They could be music majors who see themselves working for, a symphony orchestra. So we really draw from across the
Mm-hmm.
campus. We have a number of communication majors. One of the combinations that I would love to see more of is more than 95% of the hospitals in Wisconsin are actually nonprofit organizations, and we have a major in management with a health emphasis. And I think combining that with a nonprofit minor would really set you up well
Mm-hmm.
to work in one of those administrative um, roles.
Sure, that sounds like an interesting combination. I can see how that would be useful.
Yeah.
So, your research
Mhm.
focuses on fundraising ethics and equity. I think that's personally fascinating. Um, it might not be what most people think about when they think about fundraising, though. So, what are you uncovering? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
I think that's a really good point, Jessica. I think many people, when they think about fundraising, they think about either, well, you're what keeps the lights on.
Right. How to get
Or
more. Mm-hmm.
exactly. Um, but I tend to think that really fundraisers are communicators,
Mm-hmm.
and fundraisers are leaders in that they motivate people through their intrinsic motivation, right? They resonate with shared values, for example, things that they find important. And um, and so I think fundraisers, by having these conversations with people outside of the organizations that they're supporting financially, are also helping to advance the mission of that organization because they're having the conversations that build relationships and may change minds. Or less likely change minds, more likely really cement somebody's intent to support an organization that does something they really value.
You've published research on how gender and personal values affect donor responses to fundraising appeals. What did you find, and what does that matter?
Yeah, this is really interesting. And for that project, I'm working with a colleague out of SUNY Binghamton, and when you work with a colleague, it's wonderful because you each bring something to it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And Lauren's work focuses very much on the gender issues, and I was interested more in the personal values issues. And there's a large literature out there that suggests that men and women are motivated by different things. Like broadly, right?
Mhm.
Not necessarily Joe and Sally specifically, but like broad patterns.
Right.
Um, and uh, so we were interested to see how the personal values, and again, very much comes out of that management discipline, right? How people's personal values, whether those aligned with gender in terms of their willingness to support an organization. And this is something that's really interesting because when we collected the data, the study was funded through a professional association of fundraisers, and when we first collected the data, we were seeing that there were these trends that we expect in research. For example, women tend to give to things that are more community based, whereas men tend to give to things that are more aligned with like their self-interests
Hmm.
kinds of things. And so we thought that we would see a clear connection between the writing a letter that speaks to, for example, community interests, and that's something that we would see women responding more. We happened to be collecting data during COVID.
Oh, where nothing was the same.
Nothing was the same. And so
Hmm.
we're looking at our results and we're like, this does not track with with what other researchers have found. And then we're like, well, hello, it's during COVID and everybody's really anxious, right?
Hmm.
And it makes sense that if you're talking about encouraging people to voluntarily give their money to something, that having a higher level of anxiety might affect that. And so we've just done a second round of data collection. And what we're finding, we're still very much in the preliminary stages of
Hmm.
analysis, but we are finding that what we saw during COVID was really distinctive compared to what we're seeing now. What we're seeing now, the patterns are much more what we would tend to expect.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, and that in itself will be an interesting research finding. Yeah,
Right.
the anomaly during COVID.
Right. And we really think it comes down to people being much more anxious and wanting to reduce risk
Hmm.
instead of giving more opportunities. Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. Um, Additionally, you talk a lot about equity and inclusion in resource mobilization. What does that mean in practice?
Yeah, yeah, good question, right? Those are some words that aren't necessarily single meanings,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Basically, and this kind of goes back to your question about why a business school.
Sure.
One of the things I'm really interested in, it's called sector theory, and it's the idea that society's demands are met by a combination of the business market sector,
Hmm.
the nonprofit voluntary sector, and also the government public sector, right? And um, and so what I look at is patterns in what people choose to give to. There's certainly some populations that tend to um, be more stigmatized.
Hmm.
So, for example, a homeless population might be seen just in terms of social preferences very differently than, say, a kids after school program.
Hmm.
And that affects how much money you're going to get probably from people just voluntarily giving, right? Um, some people are motivated to help others who they see as needy. Some people are motivated to help others who they see as it gives them a warm feeling, right? And this is not an area that there's been a lot of research into. And so I think the more we can understand how those social preferences play into what people give to voluntarily versus what you might have to charge a fee for
Hmm.
versus what you might be able to get a grant for, I think that can really lend some stability to the organizations who are working in those areas.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I could see getting Yeah, all kinds of very usable, very useful. It sounds like the research is really going in a practical direction for applications to really help organizations support all of the different very important issues that they exist for in the first place.
Yeah, thank you
Mm.
very much. That's very much my goal. Yeah.
Yeah, it only makes sense, right? It's your calling in the school. So the Institute focuses on strengthening Wisconsin communities. How do you do that beyond teaching classes?
Yeah, well, I do want to go back to the teaching classes because our graduates have found work in nonprofit organizations. Some of them are starting nonprofit
Love
organizations.
that.
Some of
Hmm.
them are on boards of nonprofit organizations. So I think that is something. We also have our students do internships in nonprofit programs where they can learn from others. We have, even right here on campus, we have a strong
Hmm.
partnership with the UW Foundation.
Fantastic.
So a number of our students have been there, but they've been at history museums. They've been at Habitat for Humanity. So we have these internships that are in place, and then finally we've done some work with local organizations like the United Way of Jefferson and
Hmm.
North Walworth counties. A presentation with the Whitewater Area League of Women Voters, as well as some consultations with, for example, the Janesville Choral Union, where we share some of the expertise
Hmm.
that we've developed to help those organizations achieve their missions.
That's exciting. That's very exciting. Love that. So you've spent 20 years as a professional fundraiser before coming into academia. How does that practitioner experience shape how you teach or the research that you're doing?
Yeah, it shapes it a lot.
I would think, yeah.
It shapes it a lot. In fact, so I've personally worked as a fundraiser for universities, for
Hmm.
Performing Arts Center, for immigrant social services, for elder services. Um, and so being aware what those fundraising opportunities look like, what those dynamics look like in different types of organizations, but also in different methods. Um, we have a class, fundraising for charities, that we often get a lot of Greek students in, right? Because our Greek organizations have such a strong service component.
Hmm.
And so just being very practical in terms of these are things to consider if you're setting up special event. Let's write a sample grant proposal. Let's write a fundraising letter, and then how do you have a through line through these, right? As far as the other classes that we teach, I tend to have a really strong emphasis on like where does money come from, where does it go to, who benefits, and how do these processes work,
Hmm.
which I think that comes that interest, that focus on that comes very strongly from my years of working in the sector.
I would think your students find that practical application very fascinating as well. I mean, you not only are teaching them the methods and the theories behind those, but you can actually add in that richness of your experience.
Yeah, I mean, everybody comes with a different reason for
Hmm.
taking class, right? For taking any of the different classes, but we try really hard to make each class something that students can kind of tell us, what do you want to get out of
Sure.
this, and give different people a way to speak to what is interesting to them.
Hmm. Very exciting. So, what do you want people to understand about the nonprofit sector that they might not realize?
Yeah, I think first of all, almost all of us have been touched by the nonprofit sector at some point, certainly by the time you're an adult, whether it's having gone to a hospital, having gone to a church or a religious congregation, having been a part of Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Future Farmers. Almost all of us have had experiences with nonprofits, but we don't usually think of them as nonprofits. But many of these are professional organizations. Like I said, 95% of the hospitals in Wisconsin are nonprofits. Um, and and while I don't want to dismiss volunteer efforts, those can be incredibly rich, and incredibly meaningful. Um, you want to have a level of professional competence there too in many roles. 1 in 5 Americans has has received services from a human services organization. And that figure was pre-COVID, and we've had a little bit of, I'm not sure where it stands right now, but that means definitely someone you know,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
And if you think about taking off work in order to go make that appointment, your time's valuable and you want the experience to be worth your time,
mhm.
right? So I think just taking the administrative side seriously means that the mission can be accomplished so much more, you know.
Sure, sure, which circles back to why it's in the business school and the management and the leadership and the organization of all of it. Mhm.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, what's next for the Institute? What are you most excited about this year?
Yeah, okay, so a couple of things
Mhm,
actually. So Jessica, I actually am just finishing up a sabbatical, which is a lovely opportunity. And as part of that, um I am bringing back a lot of information from an archive um of fundraising consultants. And the fundraising process is not something that's really well. I think it's not really well understood in
mhm.
terms of how it works and how it can accomplish an organization's mission. So I'm looking forward to making sense of all those documents and getting those findings out. The other thing is, um, really, we are an institute, and I want to strengthen some connections um, with some of the other experts who are here on campus. We have some people who are doing some really exciting things. We've been talking about perhaps doing some workshops uh, on creativity. We've been talking about perhaps doing some workshops for board members, and I love the energy that some of
Mhm,
my other colleagues bring to it. And I would just really like to continue to strengthen those connections so that oh gosh, it just brings a vibrancy and it brings a
mhm.
focus.
There's
Um,
so much energy and excitement in this building. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
really, it is everywhere if you look for it.
That's so true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, Ruth, we were talking earlier about your research. Can you tell me who might use the findings?
Yeah, good question. And really, most faculty members write for other scholars, right? That's how you advance knowledge in the field. But it's very important to us to have that the research that is really helpful to people who are already invested in the sector, whether they're administrators, whether they're the board members, whether they are potential funders, foundations or what have you. Um, so we engage in some research. We contribute regularly to the largest national report of philanthropy annual reports called Giving USA, that's done out of Indiana, and we contribute to that on a regular basis. We make sure that when we have new research findings, if it's something that we think would be of interest to other fundraisers, we try and get it into the Advancing Philanthropy magazine, which is read widely. We try to we've done a piece looking at checkout charity and impulse giving that we've worked on getting in more broadly where people might have questions, and making sure that they can see things that might be helpful to their decisions.
Wonderful. Thank you. We talked about the Institute for Nonprofit Management. Where within the college does that program fit?
Oh, sure. So we are a part of the management department, and so if you wanted to do an academic program in nonprofit management, you could do a major in management with an emphasis in nonprofit management, or you could also do a minor in nonprofit management. It's an area that does have curricular standards. And we actually do have an honor society, Nu Lambda Mu. So that's one more thing that they can put on their resumes to show that they really have this knowledge that they can bring right after graduation.
You were talking earlier about some of the work that you do for the community that benefits the community. I know that there's popular lecture series at Fairhaven and Cedar Crest. Can you tell me what those two organizations are and how you work with them?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we've been really happy to be able to collaborate with the lecture series at both of those places at Fairhaven and at Cedar Crest. So Fairhaven here in Whitewater and Cedar Crest down in Janesville. And these are lectures that are for people in the community. You don't have to be a resident uh, uh, at either place, but just speaking to general interest. And so I've spoken at both places about the history of women in philanthropy, looking across time and the contributions that they've made to literacy, to human services, to the development of social science. And it's just a really enriching way for me as well as for the other people who have been present. We've had some really wonderful discussions, and it's something I love doing.
I know that I've personally attended a couple of the Fairhaven ones here in Whitewater to understand what they are, and they are endlessly information. I mean, they're just so interesting, and the people ask exciting questions, and I really enjoy Whitewater's relationship with the organizations.
It's really wonderful because people have, everybody has their own lived experience,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so the conversations, you never know exactly what direction they're going to go in.
Right, right. Wonderful. One final question for you, Ruth. I think I've taken this for granted, but for our audience, can you please tell me what an institute actually is and how one exists under the structure of the College of Business and Economics?
Oh, sure. So within the university, an institute tends to be located within a department. So, for example, Institute of Nonprofit Management Studies is located within the management department, right? But it tends to include people from other disciplines across campus, tends to be focused on an issue that really is cross-cutting, and then draws on that expertise and also tends to have some public-facing component as well. So it's really serving as a lens for people who have expertise and interest to contribute um, to the community, to contribute to developing knowledge in that specific area, and it's kind of cool.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I have asked the questions I prepared. What haven't I asked you yet? What do you want us
Mm.
to know?
The idea that nonprofits function in an ecosystem, the idea that it's everything from your folk dancing class that you think of as being personally valuable to you and where you go see your friends, to being something that can literally be life and death
Hmm.
for somebody. Um, that there's a broad richness there, and that there is so much opportunity for people to engage in many different ways. So, yeah, it's something that I think is worthy of attention.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Wonderful. Well, Ruth, thank you so much for coming in today. The time flew by. I really appreciate hearing all of the information that is happening in the Institute, and thank you for spending time with us. And I wish you all the best in next semester and in future years.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Jessica.
Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to Campus Pulse. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss out on what we're uncovering next. And if someone you know would love hearing about CoBE, make sure to send this podcast their way. Campus Pulse is part of the Warthog Business Voices Podcast Network. You can find all of our shows and transcripts at uww.edu/CoBE/podcasts. I'm Jessica Berge, and I'll see you next time.